online. Pretty cold, so I'm sure we'll be very focused on trying to keep warm this evening. It's winter's here. Haven't actually got any announcements, so we'll go straight into apologies. We've got them from Joe, who's in London. He's got meetings in London. Also, John and Ian, they're actually looking at a very new hospital abroad, which has got some amazing tech apparently in it to make life easier for everybody. So they've gone over to assess, and obviously I'm sure we'll bring back details and their views later on at another meeting. Otherwise, have we got any others? We're expecting Yvonne, I hope, our chief nurse. She's supposed to be here. Anybody else? Apologies, no? No. Okay. Oh, Pira. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. That's great. And perhaps, is it okay if I just acknowledge you're going to do, because you've got a report on the agenda, but you've over-exercised your knee, I think, in some hockey or something?
Oh, no. Yes, I play hockey for my sins, and I did something very silly. My advice to everyone: don't do too much exercise. It's clearly not good for you.
Thank you anyway. Thanks for coming online, Bert, and hope your knee's better soon. Any declarations of interest from anybody? No? Okay, thank you very much. And then we go on to the minutes of the last meeting. Just to ask anybody if there are omissions, errors that they've noted. I'm looking at the hands as well. No, everybody happy? So we can approve those, yes? Thank you very much. So those are approved. We'll go on then to the action logs, which I have here. This is the first one is the report on the Council of Governors evaluation exercise. Tom, is there an update on that? It's completed, isn't it? I thought it was. Sorry, I'm looking at this, not looking at completed. That one's done. Number 3, that's completed as well. 15, the task and finish group. We're getting that organised. Hopefully we should have probably meetings early in the new year where we can look at the whole, what we've got in the Constitution, but also have sort of almost like standard operating procedures for interviews for non-executive directors. So it's absolutely explicit because there is a sort of I suppose a precedent in the way it's been run before, but actually if we have it written down, then it's very clear. Certainly if as non-executives and chairs have their normal turnover, it will be there in black and white. So some colleagues will be approached from the Council of Governors obviously to have some input there as well around formulating that and what sort of paperwork and things we definitely have for our stakeholder groups and that sort of thing. Okay, is there any questions on that? Okay, thank you very much. And the second 16 and 17 have also been completed. Anything anybody thinks we've missed that they might have picked up from the minutes or anything? No? Okay, thank you very much. My update, you'll see in the papers that I've included a couple of my reports from board meetings as well in public, and that's really just in case any governors in particular, any colleagues have missed previous ones, just to make sure that you're up to date with what I've been up to and any other things that I need to report externally. Obviously, and then there's my more recent report there as well since we last met. And two things I was going to mention is that the Mayor came to open our infusion unit last week, which was great. She was very engaged. It was a great visit actually, and the staff really appreciated her interest. And it's a really good unit. It's so much better for patients to use, much more convenient, and it's local. And the only other thing is that after the interviews on Wednesday for new non-executive directors, then we will be trying to coordinate an extraordinary Council of Governors meeting. So we're hoping to be asking you to approve recommendations from the interview panel. But obviously that will be coordinated. Kwame will be in touch with potential dates. If we can get it done before Christmas, that would be marvellous, and we will do it on Teams probably, because that will hopefully be more convenient for most people. Okay, so that's all mine. Unless anybody had any questions from my updates at all? No? Okay, thank you very much. Right, Kate is here. She's going to give an update for Joe. So thank you very much. Kate, over to you.
Thank you. So just a few things to highlight in addition to Alison's report. So obviously we are firmly in winter now, and the weather's going to start to turn, I think, towards the end of this week. So operationally we are busy. The hospital is busy through ED, children's services particularly been very busy. And you might see that there's lots of stuff in the news at the moment about impact on children's services and about sort of children infection levels in the community as well being high. So we continue to manage that as we normally do. The Maple Centre opened on the 31st of October, so that's same day emergency care centre, which is proving really, really helpful in terms of helping to manage emergency flow. But nevertheless, it remains pressured across the hospital. Industrial action starts as well this month. The Royal College of Nursing, if you go out on strike first, they have done their balloting by hospital, so you had to get a certain percentage at each hospital to vote to both go out on strike but also to take part in the ballot. So we are not affected by that strike action because we didn't meet the number. Those who voted did vote to strike and also take industrial action, but we didn't meet the number of people in order to make that happen. So we won't be affected by that, but we will undoubtedly be subject to further balloting with other unions. And I think probably the next to go out is the ambulance service, and I think we will be affected by that, as I understand it at the moment, everywhere apart from, I think, possibly the East of England ambulance services affected. In other estates news, we've got work beginning on the radiotherapy centre, so those just out by the cancer centre. Groundbreaking on the 14th of December. It's amazing news, I think, for our patient population that we're starting work on that centre, being able to provide care closer to home for people. And we've also, in our innovations, have Milton, the delivery robot. So you may or may not have heard of this before, but we have a little penguin-shaped sized robot. We are trialling as part of a way of freeing up time for staff by being able to run deliveries through the trust. So that is piloting over the next few weeks. So you might see the robot whizzing about, trundling about up and down hospital corridors. I think we're quite well known for trying stuff here and being innovative, and this is one of those things. So we'll see how it works. It's caused quite a lot of excitement to the organisation. And we're also launching, in the new year, we're launching a new set of behavioural standards. So some of you as governors might have been involved in some work that took place last year with A Kinder Life. It was who brought it to help us look at what our values would look like in action. Because it had been some time since we looked at behaviours, acceptable behaviours in the organisation. That behavioural standard and framework will start being rolled out, put into things like appraisals, but also as part of the sort of narrative in the organisation around expected behaviours and what our values look like in action across the organisation. It will come back to the Council of Governors probably for the next meeting. It's not been through our Trust Executive Committee yet. It will go through there next week. So I think, again, hopefully a positive move for the organisation. And I think just generally speaking, it's a challenging time for all of us in life generally. I think that's reflected in how staff are feeling at the moment. So we've been doing quite a bit of work around engagement and about rewards and recognition, recognising staff efforts over the winter particularly, and also helping people manage with cost of living increases and people who might be facing a really difficult couple of months. So we'll keep you abreast of that. But any voluntary want to add this on this. Anything else from colleagues?
Firstly, apologies for sitting over. I expected the whole table to be taken up by execs, so I'm going to leave it 25 to go to the food bank. So first, I'm Keith. I've not been to all of you, so welcome to meet all of you. I've met these two on there before. Question: you might not know the answer to this, Kate. The robots, are they going to invent the Starship Technologies one that we've run?
No, they're a different. It's a different company, but it's not just similar principle. Yeah. So yes, it should be, but it's very different looking robot. It does look good.
Academy of Robotics.
Yeah. It's obviously very embryonic, so it's really silly, really, I think, finding all the glitches. So, what do we have to address to make it feasible? Because obviously people move around the corridors, there's stuff in the corridors sometimes. So, there's a whole raft of things to work out. So
I can remember the first time I saw the Starship come on City Station Square. I saw these two little lights at knee level, thinking, what's going on here. So but that's 4 years ago now. So
Yeah.
it's evolved, and I'm sure that technology's moved on that time greatly.
Absolutely. Keith, thank you. Actually, I feel very bad. Bunny and Keith, welcome. Our new governors. October, wasn't it? You were appointed? Or was it just
I was appointed by the council in June.
June. Right. Oh yes, because of course we had the end of the meeting. So anyway, a bit more. Yes. So yes, welcome back. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Virtual boards, something which you knew about, just mentioning.
Use of virtual boards.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Yvonne can elaborate on virtual boards. It's not a concept I think we've used here in any great volume with patients. I'm sure Yvonne will.
So I come from a place where we use them quite regularly. So as we move into this winter, we'll start to explore that with the patient groups, and that they will become a critical part of
What's patients?
well, so in this organisation, we haven't decided which patients that we've got. So they will be patients who typically, with some monitoring, we could discharge safely home. So it might be, and it might be a virtual consultation with a nurse. So it's hard to say. So it could be a respiratory patient who just needs that little bit more additional support. But they're well enough not to be in hospital, but still require that intervention. So they're almost in an intermediate zone. And so they're the kind of individuals who may go onto a virtual board. It works really well when it's set up. And we use quite a bit of technology to monitor the patient's condition and well-being. So that obviously stuff will still continue to happen and still be monitored by clinical staff, despite the fact that they're not actually still here in the hospital. And the satisfaction with it is really very high. So patients' feedback they get is because it's new, the intensity of resource that goes into it clinically is quite high to make sure that everything goes right. I suppose so we will be exploring virtual ward here in Milton Keynes, but it's in very early days. I suppose this is the first one I've been to, but I've just come from something, and the shift has been such a positive shift. I haven't seen it in almost 3 years, and we've just done some winter staffing assurance. So this week we've welcomed 22 healthcare support workers, and that's quite an achievement for the organisation, because we're competing with employers who can offer better financial packages, if you like. But they're also joining us at a time where we need the most, which is going into winter, and particularly over Christmas and New Year. But our winter assurance around Christmas and New Year staffing is very positive. And it seems to be, it's the first time I've seen this in several years, where we're in such a good position where we were able to really have a really green platform in terms of staffing, with latitude for staff absence and sickness and time off with their own families. And that for me was really very striking. It's the first time I've seen it in a while, and something to be really proud of. And it's helped in no small part by these new colleagues, but also by our internationally recruited nurses, so that we're all starting to really feel the benefit of that at the moment. It's fabulous. It's absolutely fabulous.
That's a real positive. Thanks. I think, Shirley, to come back to your question, is that we have talked about the virtual boards, board as well. So I mean, it is really helpful having Yvonne here joining us when she's familiar with this, because that will help tremendously. But we know from other areas, and certainly years ago I did a course where I actually visited some services. This was abroad, where they used that a lot, and actually the patient satisfaction was very high, and it also gave them the confidence to stay at home, so they didn't feel anxious because they knew they would have these checks. So I think it's a real plus all of that.
And although I don't think we've started virtual boards, as you would rightly know, I think we are doing some good monitoring, right?
Yeah, we are. We're in this kind of it's the testing experimental phase, but the actual rollout has in having
a proper
ward, which they are constructed like that. And we started ours in Norfolk Norwich with 26 patients. They were medical respiratory patients, so typically patients who are recovering from COVID. What kind of clinical model we're going to put around that here, it remains to be determined. It's very exciting.
Yeah. Very good use of resource, physical and other. Any other questions at all? or comments? Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Kate. Great update, thank you. Going on then to item 8, capital programme updates. Terry, are we?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I'll pick this up for John, who will normally be here. So yeah, there's a summary provided in the report that picks upon the main risks and schemes that are underway. If I just do some context around that, the hospital this year has over 100 capital schemes going on, and we're spending projected to spend between 17.5 and 18 million pounds. The items in the report are either some of the higher profile schemes and or those with risk associated with them. If I pick up from the point that Kate made around radiotherapy, because that's the single biggest scheme for this year. So construction works actually started at the end of November for that particular programme. If you've been past the cancer centre and seen that it's all fenced off and there's a big crane there, you'll notice there's already a good start that has been made by the team there. As Kate said, the groundbreaking event is next Wednesday, which is another big symbolic piece there. We're expecting that particular programme to conclude in terms of completion and handover from the construction partner around about April 24, I think was the original date that we had in the business case that went to board. We are sort of privately a little bit confident that should be beaten. I think it's obviously very, very early days still at the moment. I've probably just cursed there, but you can see it's a fairly quick build time. That's going to be, I think, for us in terms of spend for this year, about £4.5 million, so a decent chunk. The scheme in totality, there's various phases of it, is north of 15. So that's work that's underway. We've got, so Kate also mentioned the Maple Centre has opened this year, but even though we're using the building next door to the ED, from a capital scheme point of view, that still completes in between now and the end of March. We've got to close the accounts down, and that again is another big significant scheme for the hospital. So there's nothing particularly untoward there. We're just expecting to work through all the defaults and standing issues with the construction partner. And our expectation is at the moment that should come in on budget. It's already come in on time. As you said, it's handed over. There's a main theme when you look and scan your eyes over the report of all of the schemes, whether it's the multi-storey car park resurfacing, the staff rooms, some of the bay fronts on Ward 15, 16, of construction inflation. So pretty much in every aspect of life at the moment, cost of living's going up, the cost of anything is becoming more expensive. And we are seeing that same pattern play out across the capital programme. That, frankly, has been a reality for the last couple of years, but for a variety of reasons. We've had raw material prices increase because of geopolitical things like manufacturing, production, shipping, you name it, and fuel obviously is a big factor in terms of production of raw materials and shipping. So we are exposed to quite a lot of construction inflation this year. We're doing two main things to try and combat that. The first one is securing guaranteed maximum prices for the bigger projects. So where we've got particularly schemes in 6 to 7 figures, we try and agree a fixed price that doesn't just crystallise all that risk up front clearly, but a fixed price with the construction partner to make sure we've got certainty around the cost associated with those schemes. And the other thing we're able to do for slightly smaller scale programmes, an example of that is probably the staff rooms. So we have seen cost rising on that programme because it's becoming more expensive to go around and do these refurbishments. Clearly, that was the right thing to do when we agreed the scheme last year. It continues to be the right thing to do. But from a capital planning perspective, we have a cost estimation, a budget in the plan for this year. And if we get some nasty surprises coming back around because partners are having to raise their quotations, we're trying to make sure that we can still accommodate all of those works at the desired pace by any other projects that are slipping behind. We have to work as a hospital to spend constraints. So you've probably heard me or indeed Joe or John previously talk about capital expenditure controls that the Department of Health have on NHS organisations. We are still subject to those. And if we see construction inflation, we still need to make sure we live within those requirements. There's a lot of work going on just in that area particularly. There's a couple of notes in here. So one of them is around the breast care service refurbishment. I don't know whether everyone's had the opportunity to look around those services before. If you have, you'll notice it's a real rabbit warren. So if you were going to design those facilities and services, so they probably wouldn't look as they're currently configured. I won't preempt this conversation, but there's a business case going to the Trust Executive Committee in the next week or so, and indeed Finance and Investment Committee, I think, had that on the agenda for tomorrow. And there's a proposed investment of just over £1 million to refurbish and improve both the layout environment for staff, patients, and indeed put an extra ultrasound machine into that area as well. We're positive that case will have a good hearing tomorrow and the Trust Executive Committee. And if we can get some conclusion onto that scheme, that draw a line under what's been quite a protracted conversation within the organisation, trying to get all of the planning approvals that are required for that programme in place. So there's been some good progress there. I think other things to call out from the report, yeah, so the White House programme, again, this is a very novel development. So we're trying to do, as an organisation, strategically take as much diagnostic service that doesn't need to be embedded and part of the core campus here off-site, so that it's easier to access for our population. One of the things that we're doing over at White House is investing in, hopefully initially, in endoscopy services. So we're taking the lease out on the building there and converting that facility so that it's suitable to provide endoscopy services. Again, we've seen some cost inflation risks over there, and we're working with partners, both the local authority and indeed the construction team, to make sure that we're keeping the show on the road there. That programme runs for about 9 months, I think, in total to get that. So that wouldn't be something that comes online to next financial year. But again, work has commenced there, which is exciting for us. And like everything else, we just need to manage the ups and the downs alongside the rest of the programme. So in summary, that's a bit of a snapshot of what's going on. If I step back up to those big numbers of the 100+ schemes and the 17 to 18 million pounds, we are expecting to come in on plan for this year. And as I say, we've got things that we have particular supply challenges or price concerns. We're just managing those in the round across those 100 schemes. And we have a very engaged team in the hospital for individuals that are leading those projects to make sure that we're keeping on top of that position.
Thanks very much. Any questions?
Minor one. I'm intrigued, the White House. Why was it chosen as a good location?
I think principally it's a brand new health facility, so it's a good clinic there. It's got primary care facilities over there, and Oxford, who one of our clinical partners, are also trying to get a provision arranged for a renal facility in the same building as well. So there would then be a decent footprint for service provision over there. Over time, and as funds allow both capital and revenue growth spend, we would like to build out the diagnostic offering over there. But it's a great facility that's well located for that particular population. So it's certainly not the end of it. We have ambition for other premises across Milton Keynes, but again, subject to funding constraints, particularly and obviously workforce availability short term.
That area might become a bit of a diagnostic hub.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to establish something there, and equally, we know that we were able and lucky enough to have a presence in central Milton Keynes that works for a large number of the population in terms of travel connectivity and so forth.
Yeah, I see quite a trend towards things at White House, but I understand it because it's very purpose built and it has a lot more estate capacity than some of the traditional older kind of primary care locations. How are you working with Milton Keynes Council to ensure that there is sufficient transport in the long term if this is going to become more of a hub, because it is very far west and perhaps arguably not as easy to get to by bus as the hospital itself?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing to say is that we have been in dialogue with them throughout the design and implementation of that scheme. It's one of in terms of their least interest in the building as well. So they can see that our desire is to push more facility away from the hospital, and it comes with that clearly the ability for people to get to and from those facilities. So there's been lots of dialogue around it. I think there's we don't directly control the transport budget for the council. We will have a voice in there in terms of where we think that is best spent. But that really and ultimately will be a matter for the council to make sure that there is adequate provision. I think to the point I was giving as a reply to Heather, we don't see it as only being a presence up at White House Park for us. So it would be the working assumption that it is people that are largely proximate to that facility that would most often use it. And indeed, if we can get presence in other areas of Milton Keynes, as I said, as a bit of a hint, if we can get something in central Milton Keynes, that's incredibly well connected. But there's conversations going on both within the integrated care system partnership and indeed the regional NHS England team about capital investment for those facilities and what every stakeholder is looking for from such schemes. It's a bit of a work in progress at the moment. But I think, you know, on a positive note, we've made a very encouraging start. There, I think we've already got precedent here, and the important thing is getting these things done on time, on budget, and then showing how they're working for populations, and use those as case studies to say, well, where and what next.
Completely outside of my remit as a new governor, but I work for Network Rail in an area that can more ways of working for investment and delivery of capital projects and programs. So it kind of strikes me how many parallels we have, regardless of the size of the portfolio. I wondered whether there's some mileage in us getting together to think about response to the current inflation, what is to come, everything from wayfinding to ped flows and so on, just to try and make your life easier. Yeah,
I'd be very interested in that conversation. We had a similar discussion actually with the Chief Executive of NHS Supply Chain, Joe and I and some colleagues last week, which was very useful. I actually think we're probably already collaborating because one of my finance team left and joined Network Rail. So.
We're poached so much back.
Yes, we did. But no, that's a helpful offer. Thank you.
Great. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sorry, Keith.
So just comments on the transport side. It's difficult all over the city. There are areas in the north, it's the north borough Atterbury. They've taken away 3 buses there. We've got MK Connect. The biggest problem is people can't book up the time to get here for an appointment. Same applies to White House. We've got MK East covering 5,000 homes. It's going to start to deliver 24. There's a medical centre planned there, so getting things in line. But every planning application should have a transport plan with it. That might be able to take some of the Section 106 planning again money to provide for a number of years. It is always thought of, but not always delivered.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I just think I made a note to myself because certainly when obviously I have meetings with the system partners as well, particularly on the partnership committee that we've got. So I'm just thinking actually I'll feed that back in as well, because it just makes me wonder if it's something that it's not an easy nut to crack, is it really? But whether it's something that a whole system approach actually would be far more beneficial in terms of, getting people, whoever's going to run those transport systems, they might be interested in a big system approach as opposed to, pockets around in cities or countryside or whatever. But
I think particularly because of the environmental overlap as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, there's all good reasons for doing it, actually, but it's about getting the right people together. So, but I will take that back when we have our next systems meeting and raise up as well. Any other? Sorry. Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Terry. Thank you for the questions as well. Now we've got. I'm just looking. I couldn't see Heidi. She was going to do some feedback to governors on, because we're introducing this with our chairs of our subcommittees, doing feedback on the work that's going on and answering any questions, and just sort of giving some assurance around sort of the topics that are covered and that sort of thing. I did talk to her last week, so I'm not quite sure whether something's happened with her day job. I don't know if that's a possibility. I did try to invite her to join, but it hasn't come back. So
She didn't deliver that.
Right. Okay, so apologies to governors. I'm not quite sure. I'll have to catch up with her. But as I say, we'll make sure, if necessary, in the next meeting, we'll have two updates so that we make sure that we cover them both off. So apologies, I'm not quite sure what's happened. I did, as I said, I did talk to her last week, so I was expecting her to have something.
February will have the truth. Audit and finance.
Audit and finance. Yeah. Right. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll catch up with that. Going on then to item 10, the Inclusion and Leadership Council report. Now, there's a report here to just giving governors an overview. I have to say this is I really enjoy this committee. It's definitely building momentum, and we're getting some great feedback and comments from colleagues who sit on it. One of the key things that's come out from it that directly to the board is an allyship agenda across for all those staffing networks and protected characteristics. And as part of the work we're doing with Above Difference at the board, we've got some work set up for next, well, spring, well, sort of late winter, early spring, hopefully. There was a presentation to the council, which I got some good feedback from Jennifer, who is the chief exec of Above Difference, explaining how they construct the sort of training for boards, but how from that we can then focus on a piece of work around allyship. But it was very much around sort of, I suppose, getting foundations in and then taking this work forward. So as I say, this committee is building up, I think, momentum. It's very useful, and obviously it's a work in progress. We will tweak it as and when necessary on feedback, but I think it's had some very good positive moves forward. So unless anybody has any questions at all around that agenda. Obviously, repeat Governor's updated on what's happening. I was just thinking, actually, it'd probably be quite nice at some point to have a presentation here as well, as work progresses. So you can hear more about that. We'll stick that in one of our agendas, please, tomorrow at some point, probably summerish time, maybe. Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks. Now, Carers MK. Just wondering who Lucy's online. Is she online?
Yes, I am.
Lucy, oh, no, Lucy. Welcome and thank you very much for coming today. I know we've got some details in the pack, which is great. Did you want anything on? Did you want anything on the screen at all, or are you just happy to talk?
I'm happy to talk. I think as the presentation has been included in the pack, and I know time is limited, so rather than me race through slides, I thought it would probably be more beneficial if I just spoke, and then I'm very happy to take any questions at the end. Marvellous. If that's okay.
That's lovely. Thank you. Thanks, Lucy.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks very much for inviting me today. My name is Lucy Martin. I'm the Adult Carers Service Manager at Carers Milton Keynes. Hopefully all of you have heard of us, but for those who haven't, we are an independent charity. We're commissioned largely by Milton Keynes City Council, but we also receive funding from MKUH and from the ICB, and that's to deliver information, advice, guidance and emotional support to unpaid carers in Milton Keynes. Really important just to clarify from the off that when I'm talking about carers, I am talking about unpaid carers looking after a family member, friend or a neighbour who couldn't manage independently without them. We're not talking about somebody who works in a care home or somebody who provides paid care in the home. So just important to make that distinction from the beginning. Also, to be a carer, you don't need to be living with the person that you care for, nor do you need to be related to the person that you're caring for. And we know statistically around 3 in 5 of the population will become a carer at some point in their lives. And anyone can become a carer, and particularly relevant for today is that we find that this will often happen when somebody's partner has a stroke or has an accident, for example, ends up in hospital, and overnight that person will become a carer. Just to give you an idea of some of the numbers, particularly in Milton Keynes, but to start nationally, we know that around 1 in 8 of the population are in some kind of unpaid caring role. It's about 6.5 million. That number fluctuates a little bit, but remains fairly static around 6.5 million. And in Milton Keynes itself, we're confident that, according to the census, around 22,000 people are in some kind of unpaid caring role in Milton Keynes. One of our biggest challenges actually is getting people to recognise that they are a carer and not just somebody's husband or wife or parent or adult child. So that's one of the reasons why it's really important for health, social care and voluntary sector to all work together to identify particularly those hidden and isolated carers. And we know that as well as one of those challenges being that people don't necessarily recognise that they are in a caring role, one of our challenges as well is getting people in the wider community to understand who carers are. So a lot of our work is often around trying to raise awareness, trying to raise the profile of who carers may be and why we should be supporting them. In terms of what carers do to support the person that they're caring for, it can range from personal care, it can range from helping with mobilising the person, it can be practical support, it can be emotional support, but also carers will often end up being almost like a personal assistant for the person they care for. So they're managing finances, they're managing paperwork, they're managing medical appointments for the person they care for, and all of this results in the unpaid carer becoming something of the expert in the person that they care for. So this is one of the reasons particularly why it's really important in healthcare settings that carers are always included in conversations about the person that they're caring for. So when somebody is in hospital, that will be, largely probably the first time that a healthcare professional will have met that person, whereas the carer, who is spending, so much time with the cared for person, really is the expert. So it's very important that they're included in conversations from the off, really. Another reason why it's particularly important to support unpaid carers is the cost of caring. We know that carers are saving the UK economy something in the region of £132 billion per year, and that's by keeping people well and safe at home, so keeping them out of health and social care systems. All of these figures that I'm quoting are directly from Carers UK, which is the national organisation that compiles statistics and figures, so I'm not plucking them out of anywhere. And we know that 132 billion that's being saved is more than the NHS's annual budget. We don't have the resources to backfill if the carers aren't adequately supported to continue in their caring role. So it's really important that holistically within integrated care boards, that we're all working together to support carers to continue in their caring role. At Carers Milton Keynes, we support carers in various ways. Practical support, emotional support, support groups, signposting and referring. We provide a free counselling service. We provide access to legal advice, and we help carers with planning for an emergency. So what their backup plan is if they themselves are unable to care temporarily. And we also provide support for carers at Milton Keynes University Hospital. So we have 2 support workers who are in the hospital Monday to Friday across the week. We do have a room in the hospital, but the 2 support workers are able to work within the hospital setting, so they're able to go onto the wards where they have permission to do so, and then they have that base also in the hospital. Why do we have support workers in the hospital? Well, we're there again to offer support to carers, whether that's practical support around helping carers to understand the discharge process, whether it's helping them to understand the pathways in hospitals, whether it's helping to advocate for carers and giving them the confidence to have conversations and ask the right questions of healthcare professionals. But it's also to provide emotional support to carers while they're in the hospital setting, give them a safe space to talk about their concerns that they may have. And our support workers also will try to work closely with ward staff to raise awareness of who carers may be on a ward. And that's why a whole ward approach is really important. If carers aren't included in conversations in the hospitals, what can happen sometimes is that a discharge will occur. A carer may not have fully understood what will be expected of them when the cared for person returns home, leading to the caring role starting to break down and the person bouncing straight back to hospital again because the carer is not able to look after that person at home. So again, we would advocate for carers being involved in conversations from the start in the hospital setting. And once someone's been discharged from hospital, the support doesn't stop there. So the carer then would be supported by our wider team at Carers MK. So the hospital team will support very specifically within the hospital, but then after that, they will go into the wider team, which could include our older carers support team. It could include our core team who are supporting generally, But we also have a young carers support service as well, supporting from aged 8 upwards. So we're able to provide that kind of wraparound support for the whole family. That's a really, really quick overview of what we do, trying to keep it kind of relevant for the hospital, but I'm very happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Lucy. That's really helpful. And thank you for the slides. They're really helpful, actually. They're very succinct, but it's lots of good information in there. Thank you. Holly, Hayden.
Thanks, Alison. Hi, Lucy. Really
Hi.
fantastic presentation. Thank you. I also work for a charity called Dementia Carers Count. And I was wondering how much of your work is focused around dementia, and also secondary question, how much has how much has your workload increased over the last few years? Do you see it as a ongoing upward trajectory?
Yes. So how much of our work is around dementia? So we support at Carers MK. We support just under 7,000 carers. Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you how many of those are caring for someone with dementia, but I know it forms quite a significant majority of our carers. We run a couple of dementia support groups online, which are really well attended. And because we support carers, well, my area is adult carers. Obviously, as we're living longer as populations, people are finding that, especially people of working age, that they're caring for perhaps an elderly relative who has developed dementia, as well as an additional caring role. So yes, we would think that that had increased as well. Certainly over the last couple of years, yes. We know that nationally, and that's reflected in MK as well, that during the pandemic, many more people were in a caring role. That's probably gone down slightly now. But yes, what we're finding is that carers who are supporting people with mental health issues has increased hugely over the last couple of years.
Thank you, Lucy. I mean, I think your point about if carers are not ready or understand the new reality of their lives, then that can affect the hospital very directly by kind of people bouncing quickly back into a more rigorous care setting. But
yeah, absolutely.
It's really important, and I'm really glad it's being funded by the ICB as well, because that's exactly the kind of external activities that would really support our wider ecosystem.
Yeah, and it lives up to the sort of, the one of the system ambitions is to work with partners and also to redirect finance when it's appropriate to actually support services that help the whole, the whole community in different ways for that sort of holistic care, which I think is a real plus actually. Terry.
Thank you. It's really, really informative. I just had a question about how you work to identify and support young adult carers and young carers, because is there a reluctance to identify and come forward, and because of other fears, for example, or are you able to get into schools and colleges and those sorts of places to help?
We do, yes, we do work with schools. I also manage the adult carer service in Buckinghamshire, and we're a little bit further along the line in terms of schools work there than we are in Milton Keynes. But yes, we work with schools to encourage them to have carers champions on the staff, so that they're able to recognise who their young carers may be. We'll work with universities as well, and we attended some of the Freshers' Fairs recently. So just raising that awareness and helping people to understand what the support is that's available. With a lot of our young adult carers, a lot of the work that we do is kind of empowering them to understand they can make the same decisions as their non-caring peers. So whether that's going into the workplace or going into further education, helping them to understand how they can, move on, not leave their caring role, but how they can also have a life outside of their caring role. So the support is kind of tailored to the needs of that young person. Obviously, our much younger carers are 8, 9, 10-year-olds. They're likely not to be the main carer in the household. They're likely to be helping to care for a sibling who has a disability or autism, for example. But some of our older young carers may well be the main carer in the family, for example, if a parent has an illness or disability or poor mental health. So the support is really tailored to what that young person needs as well. And it's also about giving those young people a space where they can talk about their caring role without any judgments. So things that they may not feel comfortable sharing at home or with their friends, they're able to talk to other young people in a similar situation. It's really important for them.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Thank you. I'm just wondering, I mean, in case, unless there are any other questions or comments from colleagues, but I think I was just thinking in terms of, I mean, it's great to have the presentation, but in terms of sort of, well, us as a board, but also governors as well, particularly how we might support your organisation. I guess it's perhaps flagging up whenever meeting people or, you know, getting out and about in the hospital or even in the community. I suppose it's flagging up your services and perhaps sharing contact numbers and or websites and things.
Yes,
generally,
yeah.
we can maybe give the details, circulate around to governors so they can flag you up whenever is appropriate when you're out and about. Would that help?
That would be really helpful, and it's just encouraging people as well to kind of to think carer each time. You know, every time there's a person with MS or there's a person with Parkinson's or there's a person with heart disease, there's probably also somebody at home who's looking after that person. So it's kind of getting people into the mindset that each time you're having those conversations, you're thinking, who's at home, who's looking after that, who's supporting that person, and making sure that that person then gets the support through us. So flagging us and just raising awareness would be really, really helpful. Thank you.
Great. We'll make sure these. Sorry.
Lucy, I have one question for you. It's Carers MK, and I would love to see a whole network of carers support systems throughout the UK. Geographically, how far do you cover? I'm just conscious that at least in my area, we're quite a little bit further out of Milton Keynes. Do we have somebody more local to point people to, or what would you suggest?
So for Milton Keynes, currently we're based in central Milton Keynes. I'm looking next year to well, expanding is the wrong word because we have a finite amount of resources, but looking to make sure that we're providing for everybody in Milton Keynes. So are we holding support groups in all of the strategic areas? Have we looked at all of the isolated areas? So I'm looking to do a review of the service and how far our reach is and whether we're getting to the right people. Because there's no point in us just being stuck in the middle in the centre if people aren't able to access.
Would it be helpful then, Lucy, perhaps for governors who live in different, obviously they're all in different constituencies, if they flag up their area as one for you to perhaps consider and see what can be done to support that area?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we're sending out a review to carers right at the beginning of next year, asking them, you know, what they want from us, what will be helpful to us, which areas, you know, they need support, geographical areas they need support. So in conjunction with that would be really helpful, because that's the thing about working kind of holistically and working with other places is that, you know, the reach is so much bigger then. So any help like that is brilliant. Thank you.
There are national organisations like Carers UK. But Lucy, I don't know if you link into or you support in some way, but that might be.
They fall out of Carers Trust, yeah, UK.
Yeah, so
the central office in London, yeah.
Yeah, Carers Trust is a national organisation. So we're a network partner of Carers Trust. Carers UK is slightly different. So they work more with kind of compiling the data and the statistics for policy changes. But on a local level, most counties have their own carer support organisation, Carers Bucks, Carers MK.
Yeah. And I think the national body, Carers Trust, actually has a list, don't they? I think of all the geographical organisations. So, you know, if you're in an area, yeah, they should be able to point you in the right direction. But certainly worth knowing gaps, though, isn't it? Because it's a huge thing. It goes under the radar a lot, I think.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Lucy, just on final notes, actually, we had a meeting earlier, one of our charity committee meetings. And one of our partner organisations that we had a chat with, Al's Pals, and the cancer support in our cancer centre, Suzanne Brown was saying that they've set up also a community sort of network and support. I think there's been a lot of work this year and they've been quite busy. But we were asking around whether or not there are any other sort of links with other organisations like Carers Trust and things. And she said not at the moment, but I understand, I think, that they're hopeful that they will start linking up with like yourselves, because there's probably some, probably some use of each other's resource, but also some support for each other as well. Because obviously, those with cancer, they will have others supporting them, family, friends and whatever, which is absolutely where you are as well.
Definitely. Yeah. Great.
Yes. Thank you very much. Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Lucy. That's great. Membership and engagement. An update. Who's going to take it?
I think we will go then.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lou.
Yeah, so just to pull out a few of the things from the report, as at a glance, statistics, events stalls attended by governors since May, which was when the last meeting was, that's 15. Current membership standing at 1679. There have been 4 governor blogs, both internal and external, 2 governors elected, as we mentioned, about to be elected, and 4 email newsletters sent to the public members via the new system Granicus. On the current public membership, one of the stats to put out, the BAME representation is 16%, and as of the new census figures, we're looking at 29%. So that gap has widened even further in terms of the bridging work that we've got to do, which we are starting to do. In reference to those elections recently, some good successes, but on the other side of the coin, the doctors and dentists and the nurses and midwives staff slots did not even get nominations, which was disappointing. That's the second time we got doctors and dentists. So, as I say, similar to the main representation, there's some work there that's got to be done, but we are doing it. So we're confident next time we hold some elections, hopefully we'll get some nominations through for plenty of internal engagement. The work is going to be happening.
It'd be great to try and dig into that and understand.
Yeah,
survey or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's some reference to the report, as you can see. They're busier than they've ever been. We know that the staff governor profile is low, and that's part of an overall wider piece of internal engagement work that we've got to do. The more people know about governors and know they exist, what they do, the more hopefully they'll encourage them to nominate themselves. And obviously the CQC busy workloads, etc. Community partners, it's all there in the report, but actually we're starting to see some good momentum, I think, with that. All those different groups that we're looking to reach out to. One bit I would say is just picking out what's coming up next year. The governor-led event, which we know is going to be really exciting, working in conjunction with MKUH partners. And hopefully this will become an annual event and be really exciting. So yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so I'll come in here. Basically, in reference to Haley's comment, we did a survey and we've worked to also find out what the profile of star governance is, and it's really low. Basically, I think with the beginning of the foundation trust, maybe it was high. People knew what per governor was, and it's dropped off since. So we are basically starting from base. So that's the thing. So the work that's we're going to lead on is basically to raise the profile, to go towards and to sort of this starting place. We are at the very beginning. It will take a while.
Yeah,
sure. And the plan next year is to also link into induction. So we're doing various things and hope that we raise the profile, and then try to also get people to start nominating themselves. After the report, this entire report, the federal government, so I wanted to talk to those ones. In terms of community partners, you know that we submitted a proposal to the MK Community Foundation, trying to tap into their network and to try to also work with them. And the proposal was to work with them as a corporate body and as individuals sort of trustees. Please say it's been accepted, and we will be. We are arranging a meeting with Peter Wakari, our contact them to flesh it out and to see how we can progress that from next week. So there is good things happening with those partnerships. And as we mentioned, Health Watch, we have arranged a meeting with Claire. And this idea is now to try to see whether we can start holding another event. And not just for networking, but also to talk and to see. So we're tapping into the knowledge that the Health Watch has to try and see what the interest people want to hear about hospital and about healthcare and everything else. Because Health Watch has a lot of things that we can tap into. So we'll be working on that. In terms of, I think we had a one that trying to engage with young people in the schools. Preliminary preliminary contact we have with Worktree. They're already in the space. We've spoken to them. They want to help us because we are. I think it will be good to work with someone, a group, an organization that's already doing it, and not to try. We was trying to build the relationships. It wasn't really working, so it wasn't. It was just difficult. So they said they promised that they will help us. Right. So we have a meeting on 9th. Yeah. 9th. So they have an event that we're going to observe. From there, we just start working as well. So that's also good. Good things. The only delay is we in the report that we have a letter that we've prepared the letter. I think with the Chaplaincy Council trying to tap into the community faith communities. That's been delayed a bit. We might have to find a way around it because I think the China is busy. So I have to find a way around that to progress that over this. Hoping that by next year we'll progress that. Yeah. So sort of circular groups, the MK community, community foundation with the healthcare in terms of health watch, big community. So we're trying to see whether we can tap into all the various communities and angles in case. Hopefully, basically, it's all going to be governor-led. So, with the support of the myself, it's all going to be governor-led. So we need an active governance.
Yeah. So it's great. I think it's really picking up. Things are interesting.
Sorry. Do you want to go first? Sorry, just picking up on that, Kwame, and guys, lots of great work. I was wondering if both to engage governors more as well as the community, we could pick kind of topics that have been talked about. Shirley talked about virtual wards at the beginning. That's obviously something she's heard, and you're interested in, Shirley, and just intrigued, right? And why not? We hear about this kind of stuff on the news, and we're like, what's Milton Keynes doing about it? And then it's great to hear from Yvonne, they're testing different things. But if governors had a briefing on a topic that they were interested in and particularly passionate about, then they could be ambassadors for that in the community. I'm just throwing ideas around, Shirley. I'm not nominating you for a particular but using that as an example, then you feel more engaged about the direction of the hospital, and hopefully that would get more governors kind of interested and fired up about things and feel part of the ongoing strategy of the hospital rather than just kind of hearing updates and thinking, oh, okay, that's interesting, but what about that? And so I'm just trying to tie a few things together to help with the governor engagement as well as as well as the community engagement, trying to co-design things like virtual boards rather than have them imposed on people. Oh, this is the way we can do. Okay, great. But did you think of that?
Yeah, basically, I have to go back. When I joined, it was Julia trying to do everything else. She
did a great job for us.
So basically, it was we needed to progress and upscale. So we joined the second level from the committee. So we had to do the base work, and now we are ready to do all the things that you're saying. And it's we need a governance because what had to be done, the homework that had to be done in-house, but the rest is governance. And that's why I said we need active governance. We need interested governance. We need active governance that want to take it up. Otherwise, we'll be stuck again. And everything that we're saying is tapping into health watch and knowledge, tapping, but it has to also come from the government. What do they want their people, their constituents to hear? What do they want for their constituents? So it's all government for now.
I was one thing, so I think on that, just the fact that we are collaborating with Health Watch MK on this new governor-led event, if you like. Next year is kind of the ethos, that's the spirit of exactly what Trust should be doing, which is working with community, and getting watchdogs insight what the community needs.
Yeah.
And so we can shape events, shape services.
I think that. So at the moment, the voluntary sector in Milton Keynes have developed an alliance. So they're kind of working as a network of networks, and that's a big job. There's lots and lots of them. But I think Health Watch are part of that alliance, but we occupy a really funny space where, yes, we're we're part of the voluntary sector, but our work is quite different. And because we're a statutory body and we're very focused on health and social care, we often struggle with the parallels sometimes. But I think those parallels are definitely in places where we have public representatives, people who are elected. Whilst we're still independent, we want to reach, the voluntary sector have a really strong voice for the people that they see in their community groups and through their service users. We really need to reach those people who don't have really loud voices, who are just doing jobs all day, and we all struggle to do that with the resources. And I think governors have that challenge too in terms of reaching constituents, but not necessarily the ones that are already engaged in certain things. So I think together, parish councils have a role to play as well. And I think together we can really help each other by focusing down. I think the support of the integrated care system, that kind of move to work in a more partnership-like fashion can help as well. Is that? Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And I think the NHS is very good at sort of creating more sort of, consultation groups and all this sort of stuff. And actually, there are so many bodies out there where we just need to attach ourselves to and listen. We don't need to keep trying to introduce. And as you say, I think people get quite sort of exhausted and jaded by constantly, if there's surveys and all this sort of stuff. Whereas if they only have to articulate it once or twice, to a group of partners who are interested and can do something, then I think that's going to be far more powerful, really. Yeah, so fine.
Yeah, part of it is the parish councils advice there. We need to go around to all the parish councils and to
49,
48 of them.
Double them, are they?
To make the contacts.
Yeah.
To see what they're doing, and then we can tap into that as well.
Yeah.
And what Maxine is saying that with the voluntary groups, MK is the first. For every governance meeting, there will be a presentation from one of such groups from now. So I agree with Alison. So we go back. And basically, that's why I said it's not for the governance. So it's up to the governors to read and understand what the presentation is about and ask questions and give the hospital actions.
Yeah.
So it's all governance now. We've done the work.
No pressure.
actually, I think a lot of that has been discussed, but I've got a couple of things. So I was going to bring up the issue around approaching parish councils. Certainly, I think that's a key thing because they do a lot of work in community engagement, certainly. So that's definitely an area. And they would already have databases, they already have contact within the community. Certainly, that's something to think about. The other thing, I suppose, is highlighting the benefits of the membership. So obviously, our membership is only 1,680 of a population of 260,000. And certainly, there's a lot of scope to go upwards. But is that, or how is that presented to the public in terms of what is the benefit of the membership? What do they get out of it? Are they able to influence something? How are they able to? I think that that communication is not there at the moment. I am not aware of anything. So maybe there is some work to be done in that regard, in terms of promoting the values or the benefits of the membership. Because otherwise, why would I give my time?
Yeah. Or bother to read the stuff that comes to you on an email or whatever. Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah. So when the beginning of the work was to do the detachments. We had about 5,000-6,000 people. And we did a survey, sort of contacted everybody, and realized lots of people have moved away.
Yeah,
and that's it. Yes, maybe not, but that's it. And
we're going to say mostly Russian bots.
and that's when it came down to 1,000, 1,006. Yeah, it's 1,002, I think, or 3.
Yeah, it's been 14.
Yeah, 14, and now it's going up to 6,000. So it's going up again in terms of. But so we know it's going to be hard. But I think there's a lot of newsletters that we've.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I suppose the point I can make covers both those things. So just one of the pieces that I'm doing is I mentioned is 48 town and parish councils across the city. So if we start from scratch, so no kind of relationship with them at all. So to build all that up takes a bit of time. But it's not emails, it's phone calls, it's not phone calls, getting in the car and going to see them. So and I'm starting to build kind of a catalogue of contacts across all of those councils. One day it will all be up and running and everything will be easy, and we'll be getting posters on notice boards and articles and newsletters, and it will all be automatic, and they'll know they might even be coming to us saying, do you want something in, rather than me having to find who the right contacts. So, but that work is really exciting. It's great. Actually, a lot of them are kind of reciprocal, if you like, as well. So it's amazing. Some of them are more difficult to get hold of because they've got smaller teams and they've got different ways of communicating that are ideal for them. So we're learning as we're going along, but we've still already seen some fruits from it. So I think there's been 5 articles and newsletters so far in the last month, and that runs parallel with Health Watch UK newsletter, community action and newsletter. So we've run up as many bases as we can.
Yeah, I'll give you one contact. So I'm a parish councillor as well. It's a parish council meeting after this one.
But one of the ones we haven't heard of.
I guess the thing is that parish councils are also looking for projects and activities and initiatives that they can get involved with. So I think it is a what's the word I'm looking for? Symbiotic relationship. They want to promote it, but they also need that new projects that they can attach themselves with. So I think that it would be really welcome if there's an approach from the hospitals, especially with health being such a big on the agenda in terms of general public.
Yeah, even something as simple as a warm hub that's going on in that parish council area. We want to get someone to come along. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Alison. Just to make sure I understand this, we were talking about growing membership, right? And then Louis, you talked about the 42 parish councils. So are you saying that most of the membership comes from parish councils in your communication with parish councils?
No, so membership comes from a number of avenues, but that's just one example of how we are reaching out into the community to let people know about membership benefits of membership, how they can sign up.
Okay, so it begs the question, what other ways are we using as well as the parish councils? The second point, and just to get my point in so I don't talk too much, how much of the work that you're doing trying to reach out to parish councils, which sounded quite intensive, is kind of overlap with what the ICS is doing? because we should have those links anyway. And, you know, I'm kind of thinking, why not use the system that we're trying to build through that to.
I think in terms of the integrated care system and looking at what we're doing as well, there are differences what we want to do at Place, which is as our local area, and those things that we want to do across the whole system as well. So whilst I think sometimes there is some sort of cross-fertilisation, sometimes actually what we want out of it, the outcomes we want are slightly different. So in a sense, sometimes we do have to have our own contacts as well as, you know, the system having their contact. I mean, some of them obviously will be the same, but we might want slightly different things from them. So I think, and then again, I think that's where as things sort of develop and the system progresses and matures, I think we will be clearer then around those things where we can really just do one thing or use each other's, I don't know, registry or whatever it is that we've got. But in other instances, we will need something that's specific and actually delivers for what we need. So I think at the moment, we're still in that formulation period. And in terms of membership, I mean, parish councils is one, but I mean, the community foundation work particularly is around young people. So that is, you know, looking at that membership for young people and the, what's it tree, who's the name of it? Work tree, thank you. I was going to say cherry tree, and I knew that wasn't right. So work tree as well. So, you know, there's those sort of specific, I suppose, targeting specific membership in those different organisations. But again, it comes down to human resource though as well, you know, how much capacity people have got to really.
So basically, all these engagement community foundations, all part of it is to engage and to know, but also to form membership. So we, I think there's using the new set of health watch, it's about membership and also engagement as well. So it's all using all the various tools, trying to work our way into getting a spot on the newsletter which goes wide. Talk about membership. And also, as I said, I'm you are a parish councillor, you know, and basically what I said was to Peter is we want to work as a corporate and also as a because I have my eyes on a few.
Yeah. And I think as well, encouraging one of the benefits, I think with showing members the benefits is we need, as we deliver on things and can show we deliver and we've done it as a direct result of the feedback we've had from the community, I think that will prove that it's worth being a member because we listen and we change things. So it's a bit of a chicken and egg thing. We need people on board to give some direction, but equally we've got to deliver so they can see that it's worth. Sorry, Shirley, you wanted to come?
Yeah, I just wondered if we'd actually engaged staff with going out and trying to find members, because I know they automatically are, but if they all went out and signed up their next door neighbour or their cousin or their 17-year-old kid or something.
Yeah, I think some members of staff do. Yeah, I think sometimes it's just a question of capacity. You know, I think, you know, with work and then families and all the rest of it. I think you're right. I think we could be good to just promote it softly, maybe, and just say if you can, you know, get people to sign up. Yeah. We could do that. Maybe couldn't we?
Have a competition. Have a competition. Who can
have a competition? Yeah. Joe, my previous organisation, we actually did that at one point. Yeah. And it was surprising. There was some really got started. It was interesting. Yeah. Very competitive. Yeah. Thanks for that. Anything else? Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for that update. Babs, coming to you for the lead governors report. Hi, Babs. Thank you.
Hi. Hope you can all hear me okay.
Yep, absolutely.
Let me know. Okay. Yeah, thank you. So, hi all. I really hope that you're all well. I'm sorry I can't be there to meet you all in person. I was looking forward to it. And I hope you're enjoying the extraordinary football and cricket that's on at the moment. So amongst this rather dreary weather and everything else that's going on in the economy and in the health sector and everything else. In terms of what's happening with governors and my role as lead governor. So since the resumption of engagement activities, I feel that our task as governors of this trust is to continue to find ways to engage, involve and inform our constituents, which you've heard about just now, and you had a very, very detailed discussion about the things that are going on and things that we could possibly do in order to engage the public, our families, anyone else, and sort of reach out and get people to get more involved in what we do at the hospital and become members. And it's fantastic to see so many of our governors engaging with events and reaching out in the community. So but I know, and we all know, that there's lots of opportunities still to get involved, and there's not really much more for me to add in terms of that. In terms of what I am doing and also what I would like us governors to do, a lot of that is in the near to medium term future. For example, in what's happening this week, tomorrow, I and some of my colleagues are attending the inclusive recruitment training. This involves those of us who are involved in recruitment for NEDs and associate NEDs as well. So that recruitment has been offered, which is absolutely great. We've also got the NED and associate NED interviews this week. A matter that arose from a meeting last week was reviewing the constitution to align it with the process for appointing associate NEDs into a full NED role where that opportunity and the need arises. We sort of had a look, and we're sort of the intentions there. We know what we're doing, but there's a little bit of a disconnect about the actual constitution and what we're doing. With regards to our roles as governors, recently I sent out an email to my colleagues with to sort of start regular pre-meetings. So pre-meetings before the trust board meetings in public, pre-meetings before these sort of councillor governors meetings to go through the agenda. I sent this email, but I haven't scheduled more because I feel that I need more feedback from the governors about whether you really actually want these and whether they will be useful. I've had lots of positive feedback, but I've had also a comment that, you know, all our lives are very busy. Adding these pre-meetings might be a lot to expect. And just wanted to say that these meetings are suggested, they're not mandatory, and they're really useful, especially for new governors or those who have been around for a while, but, you know, just want to have a bit of a different insight into, say, an area that maybe a staff governor has an idea on, so about how to interrogate the information that we get from the board, the information that we get from the NEDs. Also, this all helps us in holding people to account. If you don't know what questions to ask, you don't know what you're looking for, you can't be as useful as you otherwise would be. Furthermore, into the future, I am attending an information and update on the ICB, Integrated Care Board, on Wednesday, straight after the NED interview. So I've got a very busy day. This will be quite useful because at the moment, we governors are kind of floating around waiting to find out where and what we're supposed to do in this new integrated care system. There is a draft out there, but is that draft actually going to be the full thing? We get to hear more about that. I myself have mooted putting together a governance strategy to go hand in hand with our engagement strategy. So on the one side, we've got the engagement side, which is really, really important and really key in terms of what we do in the community, what we do in the hospital for staff, just getting people to understand what the wonderful things that the hospital does, and also understand what we don't do as well. But on the other side, with the governance side, and that hasn't had, I feel, as much spotlight because we're still waiting to understand what we're doing in the ICS. I wanted to draft something, but I thought it'd be a bit premature without getting comments from my colleagues. So I have a settled idea about what it is that they'd like to see more of. We'd all have an idea where we sit in the whole system and what we're expected to do. And out of that, we can draft something to go alongside the work that Louis and Kwame are doing in terms of engagement, and hopefully it'll give us a bit more of a steer and a focus on what we are going to achieve from the new year onwards. So that's my update from my point of view. This is short term this week with what's happening with the interviews and everything else, into much further into the future where we governors can really be effective, really know what we want, and actually lead the way, and maybe get into a situation where we are turning to the NEDs and the executive directors and saying, well, actually, this is what we'd like to see. We're not treading on toes, but how are we going to be able to do this or ask these questions if we don't know that? At the moment, there are blind spots where we don't know what we don't know, and I'd like to bridge that gap. So that's my update.
Thanks, Babs, very much. Thank you. Any questions or comments at all? Nice ambitious agenda, so we've got plenty to move on with in the new year. Okay. Thank you very much. That's grand. And Maxine, Health Watch update. Thank you very much.
That's quite a short report. Just apologise. Probably a bit symptomatic of perhaps some of the first issues, and colleague who prepares it had to do an unannounced enter review at the beginning of the week, so kind of scuppered her plans to something together. As the kind of first section indicates, we've been seeing quite a significant increase in the number of people calling us about difficulties with waiting times. I think as we would expect to an extent, because we know that waiting times pressures are quite difficult. I think it's probably a couple of months back now, but I was invited to speak on BBC Three Counties Radio for a gentleman whose routine hip surgery at the hospital had been cancelled a number of times, and I think perhaps that local piece of reporting probably steered a few people towards Health Watch as well. But we're seeing a lot of people who are perhaps stuck on long waiting lists. They have some information about perhaps their rights to seek specialised treatment elsewhere if their waiting time is going to be longer, but are struggling to navigate that. So we're getting an awful lot of people querying that. We've had some really good feedback about the My Patient Journey portal. If I've said that right, because I keep thinking I'm confusing it for something else.
That sounds right to me.
Yeah, so I think it is. Yeah, My Patient Journey. I think people are finding that incredibly useful. I mean, it's not. It certainly doesn't give you any positivity for the future at the moment in terms of your waiting time, but at least it gives people very transparent information about how long they might be waiting. You know, everyone's in the same boat. They do understand. And I think actually we've had a couple of comments from people who only found out that from us, and actually their GP wasn't aware of it. So there might be something in comms around circulating that onto primary care and making sure that primary care staff are aware that that hub is there. So I think people have fed back that they find it quite useful, not just the waiting times, but all that information about how to support yourself with chronic pain during that journey, how to access other help, you know, links to information and carers and things. So it's a very good portal, I think, to help people in different areas and signpost them to other areas. And it's certainly something that we are using. We have also had, and I think this is probably symptomatic of the postal strikes, but a number of people coming to us saying that they'd received cancellations. They'd attended the hospital for appointments that had been cancelled, but they hadn't received a letter. Now, I found this quite surprising because I thought the online appointments system was rather quite well established now. I'm sorry, I'm not up to speed just about whether outpatients had come on board, but I thought that was generally progressing well. So
I recently had an eye appointment and nobody gave me any information about any online.
Yeah, because I thought everyone had the portal now. I mean, personally, all mine come to my portal now. It says, but I know I it's a bit a while back now, but I knew that outpatients and I think maternity hadn't.
I think we have a lag. So I don't want to say outpatients is on when it's not. I don't I think possibly it's one of the areas that's is waiting.
Still waiting. Okay,
but
that might explain it.
Yeah.
But I think yes. So people are receiving letters soon after, and we've been doing some focused listening events with people with from the deaf community with hearing difficulties as well. They generally do come with quite a lot of feedback about difficulty with communications at appointment setting in the hospital as well. But we're hoping to do a little health and wellbeing event with them soon as well. And of course, always kind of join forces with the trust and get. But I think, I mean, I've mentioned around the opportunity to do an event together.
Yes.
And I think it is really important. I think, we do a number of health and wellbeing events, and we get such lovely feedback from professionals who don't get the opportunity to meet each other very often, and they network and they always feedback how positively that they can see different services. But one of the struggles we have is trying to get that footfall. Whatever location we have it, even if it's like slap bang in a community, even if we leaflet campaigns, even if we bombard people with emails, it's really difficult to get that footfall. So again, it's about our approach to working with, the trust as well, to really galvanise that community interest in attending these events. Because when they do attend, they're blown away by all the services that they didn't realise were there, and just how they can access some of the services. So, really looking forward to what we can do in the year ahead in terms of bringing a few members of the community to our information events.
Great. And I suppose as well, obviously we've been people's permission as well, but sort of maybe using things like YouTube more, so that if people aren't there for the evening or whatever, or the afternoon, we can at least give out that information. You can find out all this information, and hear from clinicians or whoever else might be there, at any time that suits you. So I suppose it's that kind of using as much or as much media or whatever that we can to support it. Because I think, sometimes people just don't like going necessarily to meetings, do they? But they're willing to look up something, through their phone or whatever.
Yeah, I definitely feel that it's something that, we had opportunities during the pandemic to kind of galvanise some like online videos and things. But I think in reality, very busy agendas, putting together videos. If you don't have large media comms resources, it can feel a bit tricky. And again, that's another opportunity where, and I was just thinking that the ICS have a communications collaborative that they've started recently, and I've just got my comms officer on there, and I think there's lots that can be done to really support many of the smaller resources, because I think we're often, regardless of the size of your organisation, I think the comms and the engagement resources are often very, very small. So, how can we work together to join forces and reach out as one, as it were, in many ways?
Yeah. And actually just thinking as well, I know my previous organisation, I think we did a bit of this, but with colleges and schools and other universities, there are now big media departments where people are training. So for me, isn't there something around us, as a system, linking up with these educational institutions to give people an opportunity, budding directors or whatever, give them an opportunity to do something and actually contribute to the community as well at the same time. So they benefit by getting the experience, and we benefit because, we get something that's sort of, more affordable, but also brings in, sort of technicalities or technical expertise that we don't necessarily have ourselves. Just think. So again, another one for the another mark down for the ICS. We'll see what we can do in the system-wide basis.
Well, the MKUH College have got quite a lot of interaction with the Foundation and other organizations. They've got a lot of student projects such as that.
Perhaps we can put that on the list, please. Thank you very much. Conversations always bring an extra dimension. But yes, I think coming back to your point, Maxine, around the waiting list, it's such a challenge. And even when people do have the right to sort of ask to be referred on elsewhere, but the trouble is elsewhere is also pushed and have waiting lists. And I think it's such a vicious circle at the moment. It's really, really hard just to try and address this and get the people in as quickly as possible. And I'm very concerned around all the strikes that might happen because it's going to have an impact. We can't avoid it. It's going to make matters worse. So with the best will in the world. But there we go. We've got to manage it as and when it happens. Thank you very much. So anything else? That's brilliant. Thank you very much. Any other question? Hayley?
Just picking up on one of the things Maxine said, it would be good to have a clear understanding of what is supporting the patient, what is like which departments you can book using the functionality, because it is good.
Yeah.
And if you're used to it, you're like, why can't I book everything through this? Oh, okay, no, I have to call up for that one for that. So, and you know, I think we've been talking about this for a while. Right? It's not the rollout of the patient portal is.
Yeah, I'm in my head, and I'm remembering giving out information so you could see where the how long the waits were and things. I'm not sure how interactive it is, but
No,
yeah,
I think you're right, but I think even the records, they're not all departments are using the record functionality. As well. I think it's still.
Perhaps you can have an update at the board or something to see where that is and where it's.
So it'd be good to have it on the website, right? You can use the patient portal for this, but call these numbers if you're trying to book.
Maybe we can pick that up for comms. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. Thanks for that. Any other questions? Thank you very much. Motions and questions from the Council of Governors. I'm not aware of anything. Tom, have we got anything? No. So thank you very much. That's noted. Any other business from anybody?
Question. There was talk a while ago about having the leader of the youth council on. Is that still on there?
Yeah, there was, wasn't there? What? Something happened there, I remember.
We've changed and we've changed.
Right.
Can't keep up with the youth climate.
Yeah, we've changed, but they seem not to have put their house in order.
Right. And you have as well, have you, Maxine, to
Yeah,
get some input? That's interesting.
We've always found it quite difficult to establish contact.
Oh, right. Claire, you've got your hand up.
I think community action as well.
I'd just like to, as I mentioned earlier today, I'd like to mention that obviously I'm involved with the Friends of Milton Keynes Hospital, and we are now going round the wards in the ward trolleys in the morning, and I think it's a very good way of governors really finding out what's going on the wards. So the invitation is that you're welcome to accompany me on a day that's convenient to you, and I will take you around and help me interact with the patients.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah. So governors, and you extended that to the non-execs as well. So yeah, I've no doubt you'll get a whole line of us over the next few months coming around with you.
Yeah, and this December is my 35th year of being a volunteer in the hospital.
Oh my God.
So I joined in
Wow, well done.
So I've known it from a very small hospital to getting something quite large now.
Right from the beginnings. That's very impressive. Thanks, Claire. Thanks.
Yes.
Shirley, just to come back to your question as well around if you have any influence or at all or contacts, just no. We're kind of hoping somebody somewhere, we're just because it seemed like a great idea, and an easy win, but yeah.
Yeah, because when I was an apprenticeship manager, we did actually have a stall at they had some sort of meeting.
Yeah.
For it, and and they all flocked. It's pretty much a one-off of it.
Well, it seemed they seemed interested, didn't they? And then it's just gone.
No, I don't think it's that they're disinterested. I think they just have very full agenda of various, and they do kind of really stick to a lot of the really big social value things. So I think there's a challenge to kind of find a valuable space in their very busy agenda.
Yeah.
But then we thought they were suspicious of us. Very suspicious, asking lots of questions. We really answered all the questions, but it's gone quiet.
Yeah.
So I thought actually
we'll try again every now and again, maybe. We'll just try. And if anybody has any influence or contacts, then please do use them because it was.
So what did they think? I don't know how. set up, but would there be capacity to just have a sort of youth governor?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we were hoping we could have. Then would be that direct link, but it hasn't come to fruition yet.
Which is out, you know, there might be like young people who would be sixth formers who would want to stand for that position, maybe.
I suppose maybe we can take that away and have a think about just broadening it out rather than trying to go where it seems sensible to go. Maybe maybe just
might be somebody who would just
do
that one
have a bit of a competition.
Understand if they are, you know, they've got that role. There's probably a lot of things to do, especially at a time when they're quite busy with exams and all the rest of it themselves anyway.
Yeah.
But somebody might want to do it as a standalone.
But almost do a rotation around schools or something, or colleges, or in our age group, we're 16 and above, isn't it?
And the alternative was if we're able to work through community foundation, youth.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So we might be able to do it through that way. Yeah.
That is difficult to reach those sort of clubs. But if it goes through those, I'm sure we'll be able to.
Yeah. Let's do
and again, the parishes have the youth engagement committees and whatever else. So.
Yeah.
The more reason why he has to travel.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, and please do all consider going, if you can, go around with Claire. And it's a very good service actually going around to wards, so it would be great to see. Thank you very much. Okay, well, on that basis, we'll just confirm the next meeting is 30th of February, as we'll be going into spring. How nice. So, and just to say to everybody, have a great Christmas and New Year. And obviously I'll be seeing some of you on Wednesday when we do our interview. So look forward to that as well. So thank you all very much. Thanks for your time, and catch up with you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.